Hello and welcome to the Screencastify, this narrated PowerPoint on the operations and decision making end of topic test. My plan is to go through this and give you some help with the answers, and obviously you can dip into this, you can watch the multiple choice bits and then stop it and then consider those multiple choice answers, etc. And it's entirely up to you how you use it, but it's designed to try and help you to understand a little bit more about the way in which the under topic test should have been tackled. So without further ado, let's move on and start to look at the first set of slides. Okay, so first and foremost, you had 10 multiple choice questions, and each one of them I've gone through and highlighted the actual answer. As we've done that, we will also then talk about why this answer is the correct answer. So let's look at the first question then. Which of the following objectives is not an operational objective? We've got improved quality, lowering energy costs, identifying new markets, or improving the speed of response. And effectively, improving quality, lowering energy costs, and improving speed of response are all operational objectives. They're all to do with operational activities, so quality, lowering costs and energy cost in particular, and improving the speed of response, whereas identifying new markets is actually a marketing objective as opposed to an operational objective. Remember, folks, to read the question quite closely. It says which of the following objectives is not an operational objective, so in this instance it would be C, as highlighted here. The next question then, the business aims to reduce the number of the time taken to deliver a product. This is an example of what? And if you think about what and sometimes there's a bit of applied common sense. If you're looking at reducing the time taken to deliver a product, then that is obviously a speed of response objective. The other three, by process of elimination, are not relevant to that particular question. Okay, so speed of response, where we're actually trying to reduce the time taken to deliver a product, obviously that is the speed of response objective. Let's move on and look at number 3 then. Question 3, what does this formula measure? Actual output per month, or per annum per month, or divided by the maximum possible output per month. And most of you should remember, if you've been doing a bit of revision on operations, that is the formula for capacity utilization. That's the percentage of the maximum output that is actually being used by your organization. Okay, so those are the first 3 questions considered. Let's move on and take a look then at questions 4 through to 6. One advantage of having spare capacity is what? Well, obviously spare capacity in some cases is a good thing, as we've talked about before. Is that going to mean that employees are motivated to work harder? Nope, I don't think so. What about fixed cost per unit being reduced if you've got spare capacity? No, if anything, fixed cost per unit would actually go up because you're not producing so much, are you? Business will employ more staff, and with spare capacity, would you employ more staff? No, I don't think you would. So the only advantage in this instance to spare capacity of the 4 options there is less pressure and stress for employees. So that would be your response in this instance. That would be D for question 4. Moving on to question 5, which one of these costs would not be a direct consequence of a failure to control quality? So remember, I've got to read the question quite carefully. Which one of these costs would not be a direct consequence of a failure to control quality? Well, prevention costs. Actually, it's not really, in this instance, it's not a cost that would be a direct consequence of controlling quality, failure to controlling quality, but clearly product recall costs would be, a reworking cost would be, and scrappage cost would be. So if you like, the last 3 are costs that would be a direct consequence of failing to control quality. But obviously, if we have prevention costs, that hopefully would actually avoid us having to have the cost of non-compliance as far as quality is concerned. Okay, so prevention costs would be a cost that's not directly a consequence of failure of controlling quality. Let's move on and look at number 6 then. Question 6, mass customization. is one of those four things. In this instance, and actually thinking about this, and in some cases this happens quite regularly, a question on the multiple choice part of a paper also then goes on to be asked in a bit more detail, as you will see when we look at one of the later questions. So obviously understanding what mass customization is quite important in this instance. Okay, is it an approach to production that uses push methods? Nope. Is it based on companies keeping high levels of inventory so that customers have a wide choice of products? No, that's one element of mass customization, is that obviously you do have to hold an amount of product, but it's not the definition of what it is. Is it a production system that customizes goods but not services? No. If you're going to apply mass customization, you can apply it to goods and services. The actual answer in this instance is answer C, where you're offering individual tailored products to customers on a large scale. So in this instance, it would be answer C. Okay, let's move on and do the last four questions then, last four multi-choice questions. Let's have a look at question number 7 then. Management of raw materials, work in progress and finished goods in order to reduce storage costs while still meeting customer demands is the definition of. 4 options there. The answer is inventory control. Inventory is a sort of American term really for stock. So when we talked about stock in the past, stock and inventory are interchangeable terms, okay? So you could change that inventory control to stock control, but obviously being aware of these different definitions that actually mean the same thing, really quite important, okay? So in this instance, if we're managing those levels of stock or inventory, clearly the definition or the term that's relevant is A, and that's inventory control. The others are not about managing the different levels of stock and inventory. Let's have a look at question number 8 then. An advantage of low inventory levels is what? Well, clearly, if we've got low levels of stock, low levels of inventory, that's going to mean that we've got less money tied up in stock. And so that should lead you to the answer, really. So effectively, for question 8, it should be C, that you came to the conclusion that it was the correct answer, where you're talking about cash flow problems are going to be less likely. Okay, so thinking about, and again, you can sometimes do this via a process of elimination. Clearly, if you've got low inventory levels, that's going to mean that any increase in demands aren't going to be dealt with efficiently. That's going to be causing major panic. Clearly, in another instance, companies can benefit from bulk buying. Well, they can, but that's not really an advantage of low inventory levels. And finally, customer demand is dealt with promptly. Well, within low inventory levels, there's an argument to say that you might need to manage a customer's expectation to a larger degree. So you need to bear that one in mind too. Okay, let's take a look at question number 9 then. Factory has just experienced a 0 level of inventory. So basically, inventory, remember, is a term that is interchangeable with stock. So we've got no stock at all. Okay, it wishes to have a buffer level of inventory. So that's where you've essentially got a level where, as soon as you've always got a level of stock in place. So in that case, if you want that to be 80 units, and in this case we've got 35 units that are being used per day and a lead time of 5 days, it takes 5 days for our supplier to deliver. Our reorder level would be basically taking the 80, which we want as our buffer level, and adding 35 or 5 lots of 35 for the amount of usage that we're going to be using per day. So effectively we've got 80, and we're going to then take 35 and times it by 5 to give our lead time, the amount we need to give our supplier in terms of them providing reorders. So we're going to add those two sums together. So we're going to take 80 and we're going to add 35 times 5 to that, and we arrive at the answer D, which is 255. Okay, last question then in terms of multiple choice. Which of these is an intangible feature of quality? Well, additional features is not an intangible feature. That's very much a tangible feature. After sales service, well, that's not really an intangible feature of quality as such. It's an element of the product offering, but not really an intangible feature of quality. Target market has nothing to do with the features of quality, but reliability clearly does. It's an intangible feature. Essentially, you can't measure it, but well, actually, you can measure it to a degree, but it's not something that you can actually use as a product feature as such, other than to say that in this instance, we've got if we've got a high quality design and build in our product, then that's going to mean that we're going to have a more reliable product too. Okay, so let's move on. So those are the multiple choice questions. Now, one thing, bit of general feedback. Some students actually, in some cases, have actually left the answers to their multi-choice questions completely blank. Now, that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, really. Just think about an educated guess and then move on from there. Okay, so we're going to stop the video there. So we've looked at the multi-choice questions. What I will do in a later narrated PowerPoint is carry on from the multi-choice questions and look at questions 11 through to 17 on the operations end of topic test. Okay, thanks for listening, and any questions, please let me know.